Hey, beautiful souls. This is hot off the presses. I want to share with you this really cool formula that I was just given last night by my spiritual guides to help us to maintain spiritual freedom. All right. So let me set up a whiteboard because it's really visual. But as I get this set up, I want to just mention that you may feel some resistance to this. And there may be a lot of people that never actually finish this video because anytime that you start to go towards spiritual freedom, you're going to feel some resistance. There's quote unquote the dark side that doesn't want you to be free. So if you are feeling like, oh, just this itch to click away, I urge you to resist that because this is really powerful stuff. Okay, so this formula is based on the sacred triangle, and the triangle can represent a lot of things. But in this case, we are looking at a sacred triad of the mental body, the emotional body, and the physical body. Okay. When we reach a state of freedom, it has to involve all of this, right? It's like head, heart, and hands, right? Mind, heart, physical body, they all have to work together. We can't be free in just one or even just two. We've got to have that freedom in all. I'm going to put some more words up and while I'm speaking. Why is this important? Why is freedom so important spiritually? Well, it's because in order to truly have an individual connection with the divine through our higher self, we have to be able to work directly with our higher self, and that's our individual divine nature, right? And if anything interferes with that, then we aren't able to express or fulfill the impulses that are coming through us from our higher self. And so we aren't able to bring that into physical being, into fruition here on the earth. Right. That is why the freedom is so very, very important. Liberty. Okay. And when I'm talking about freedom, I am talking about liberty. I'm not talking about license. License is this do what you will, do whatever you want, regardless of consequences to anybody else. That is not what I am talking about. That's actually pretty satanic. What I am talking about is liberty, and that is the freedom to express what our divine nature is here to express, right? True freedom, true sovereignty will respect the sovereignty of others because we are all connected. Okay, and so why is mind, emotions, and physical body, why are they important? Because the creative impulse comes through our mind through the concept, right? And then our emotions are this force that spurs us to action, right? And so when a concept comes into our mind, it will trigger emotions, and depending on those emotions, that will trigger the physical action. Okay, so if an entity or something out there can hijack us, it will do so at one of these 3 points. Okay, and the first one is the mind. The principle of freedom is so important spiritually, that really a sacred thing. Okay, and so spiritual beings cannot interfere with your freedom directly. This is a natural sacred law in the spiritual planes. What they can do is to trick you into giving up your own freedom. All right. And so the angelic beings or any beings of light will respect your sovereignty. But any beings of darkness that might be floating around, you're fair game to them for manipulation, trickery, that kind of thing. And so the first place that they can get at you is through the mind, through the mental patterning. Okay, you've probably experienced having had false beliefs, maybe about yourself, maybe about other people. Like bigotry is a false belief, right? If we think that all people of a certain color or race or whatever are a certain way, that is a mental pattern, that's an untruth that we can fall into. And once we start believing certain, then our mind goes in that pattern, and it takes questioning to get rid of it, and it takes logic. All right, so the antidote to mental control is skepticism, and that means question everything, right? And this is just a suggestion, but especially right now, we're moving into this time where we cannot trust almost anything that we see, especially online. My husband and I were having a conversation last night. He told me that he was going through his Facebook feed and just kind of looking up all these statements and things that were being made, or memes on there, or quotes from people. And he said like 70% of them, he pretty much verified that they weren't true. There's all sorts of images being generated by AI these days, quotes being thrown out there. If you have ever used AI, you know that it will hallucinate. It'll tell you what you thinks you want to know, and it will make up facts, right? And if you don't know better than to actually look it up and verify, then it looks really real. We have ingrained untruths in our culture. Every culture does. We have ingrained untruths that are given to us through our religious training. Videos like this one, right? So I want you to be really, really skeptical as you watch this video too. Check in with your gut, right? Check in with your higher self. And does it ring true? The encouragement is to, especially if anything triggers your emotions, first of all, take stock mentally. Just pause and take the time to look it up. If it is, say, a quote from a public figure that makes you mad, right, or makes you sad, or something like that, take the time to look it up, and look it up in context, and try to understand the entire context around it, rather than just taking this little soundbite at face value. This is going to be so important going into these next 4 or 5 years. We're really at this crazy point, which I'm going to be addressing in future videos. But anyway, mind and skepticism, question everything, right? That is first line of defense for defending your personal freedom. All right, second line is the emotions, okay? And keeping a handle on those, because your emotions are so powerful. They're really powerful manifesting powers, okay? The emotions, like I said, will trigger actions. So we want to be really, really vigilant as to how we're handling our emotions, right? You're probably familiar with like the sense of outrage that's very, very common out there. Every time you scroll through your social media, you're going to see things that are designed to throw you into outrage. You may also see things that are designed to pull you into pleasure, right? A lot of sexual content, or maybe food, and you get really kind of emotionally drawn in, or it could be little story videos that make you feel either emotionally fuzzy or whatever. But what is it doing? You want to really keep tabs of that and feel into, is this actually feeding me in a good way, or is it simply siphoning my energy off through taking my attention off into something like a rabbit hole? Okay, so if we want to maintain our personal freedom, we have to be able to focus on what we're here for, right? And that means that we have to maintain some level of control or mastery over our emotions. And so the antidote to emotional hijacking is Stoicism. Now, Stoicism is a big, huge philosophy, and what I'm really referring here when I'm using this word, it may not be absolutely correct, but I'm using it to describe developing emotional control. Now, that doesn't mean that we stifle our emotions. We still want to be able to feel them, because our emotions show us that there's something there that is potentially important, right? Or it could be something that's actually important, or it could be some kind of a red herring that's wanting to redirect our attention somewhere, okay? And so if we do not have that sense of discernment and a developed emotional control that will help us to use our emotions in positive ways, then our emotions are going to be hijacked by something else that wants to use our energy, okay? So Stoicism is this process of learning to control our emotions, or to manage our emotions in a positive way, right? Not allowing our emotions to drive us or to misdirect our energy. Like I said, we want to be able to allow ourselves to feel our emotions, but then not allow our emotions to gallop away with us, right? You can think of the emotions like a horse. We want a very well-trained battle horse, and not one that's going to go crazy every time they hear a noise. right? So Stoicism is our second line of defense against having our freedom stolen from us. And then the third line of defense is governing the physical body, okay? And I'm calling this sovereignty. And even though sovereignty really explains the whole state of being free or at liberty, the reason I'm using this phrase here is because a lot of times our physical actions are dictated by the laws of the country or the organization that we're working within. And so here it is really, really important to be aware of the law. And this is huge. This is why the Constitution here in the United States is such a big thing, because it was actually created on this foundation of protecting personal sovereignty. And if you take the time to really study the Constitution and the mental workings of the founders or the authors of the Constitution, it will really be illuminating, because they actually had a very, very metaphysical perspective. They understood why freedom and liberty were so important as this very necessary thing for us to spiritually evolve, okay? That's why the Constitution was written. It's very metaphysical. But the reason I put this under physical here is because wherever you are in the world, you're going to have laws that limit or allow certain actions within the world. Right? So it's really, really important to be aware of that, and be aware that in the next few years, we are likely to see things happen that may trigger new laws being brought forward for consideration that may be very limiting to our personal freedoms. Okay, so it's going to be really, really important to keep an eye on those and to speak up if we see laws being suggested that will curtail our sovereignty or our personal freedom. Okay, and again, this is not talking about license. You know, you're not allowed to kill your neighbor, but I'm talking about laws that actually curtail our freedom to such an extent that it interferes with our ability to express ourselves in the way that our higher self would like us to. All right. I will create future videos that will go into some of these points and explain especially about the laws and what to look for and how to tell if a law is actually limiting your divine rights. All right. So if this is something that interests you, if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for future notifications. I always appreciate your likes and your comments. And remember, you were born to be free.